is Joy News Prime.
Welcome to Joy News Prime. My name is Israelite. Coming up, suspended national chairman of the opposition New Patriotic Party says he intends to go to court to fight his indefinite suspension. The acting chairman, who says he is in no hurry to see the return of the suspended chairman, has meanwhile chosen to harp on what the party says is the incompetence of the Mahama administration, alleging the president is also corrupt. Government directs Economic and Organized Crime Office to investigate former Deputy Energy Minister Katie Hammond over the controversial sale of a drill ship owned by the Ghana.Petroleum Corporation to defray a judgment debt.
And in business tonight, ratings agency Fitch is warning that plans by government to reduce its rising expenditure to appreciable level might be difficult to achieve.
And Accra's infamous liquid waste disposal dump Lavender Hill to be decommissioned in June next year. From wherever you're watching, this is the most comprehensive 2 hours of television news in Ghana, but also available across Europe on ABN Television, on the Sky platform, as well as Freeview Connect. Do stay tuned. Suspended national chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Paul Afoko, has criticized the party's decision to suspend him, describing it as illegal and a clear breach of the NPP's constitution. Speaking at a news conference in Accra, Mr. Afoko said the party's constitution does not allow for the suspension of an elected national officer for more than a month. He refers to Article 10, Clause 1 to 5 of the constitution, which he says lays down the processes for removing an elected officer.
It started with intimidation, insults, and abuse on air, targeted at literally everybody. Physical attacks, and now intolerance of freedom of speech and dissent, and of late, killings. In the last months, some members of our party have taken steps that are in clear breach of the constitution of our party. As you can all recall, on October 23, 2015, an illegal National Executive Committee issued a statement purporting to have suspended the national chairman of the party. The processes adopted were illegal. Our party's constitution clearly provides the legal processes for the removal of constituency, regional, and national officers as follows. In the case of a complaint against a member of the National Executive Committee, the complaint is sent to the National Council. The National Council then refers the complaint to the National Disciplinary Committee. The National Disciplinary Committee then investigates and sends its recommendations back to the National Council. If the matter relates to the removal of an elected national officer, then Article 10, Clauses 1 to 5 apply. The import of these clauses is as follows. If members wish to remove an elected officer, they must get at least 40% of the delegates. I repeat, if the matter relates to the removal of an elected national officer, then Article 10, Clauses 1 to 5 apply. The import of these clauses is as follows. If members wish to remove an elected officer, they must get at least 40% of the delegates that elected that officer to petition to remove that officer. The affected officer will be given the opportunity to appear before a committee set by the National Council, a committee set by the National Council. The National Council may then suspend the officer before subsequently an extraordinary delegates conference is convened to deliberate and decide on the matter. I repeat for emphasis, the National Council may suspend the officer before subsequently an extraordinary delegates conference is convened to deliberate and decide on the matter. This is the only time an officer of the party can be suspended. This is the only time, as stated in our constitution. And even then, when suspension is invoked, it should not exceed 1 month. Therefore, an indefinite suspension of an elected officer is tantamount to a removal of that officer. I wish to state now that the decision to suspend me is unconstitutional. The National Discipline Committee does not have jurisdiction to determine a matter with the effect of suspending indefinitely an elected party officer from office, contrary to Article 10 of our Constitution, which focuses on the removal of elected party officers.
Now, just about the same time Safoko was addressing that news conference, the man who has replaced him at the helm of affairs at the New Patriotic Party was also addressing journalists, criticizing President Mahama's administration. We'll be bringing you more on that shortly, but for now, let's hear from Mr. Blay, who says he's enjoying his current position.
So under what circumstance would we see Paul Afoko reinstated as the party chair?
I talked to you about it. It's not me who will going to reinstate him. And it's not fair to me, and it's not fair to you. Definitely, I'm an acting president. I'm trying to do what the acting chairman, and I want to do what the party expects me to do, so that I will not be booted out.
You mentioned that you enjoy the limelight as the acting chair.
Why not? I'm saying that's what I'm talking to you. So please, it's not be fair to you if I give you any answer.
Now, the acting national chairman Miwa maintains that the Mahama administration is incompetent. He told the news conference that in addition to being inept, government is also corrupt. He urged President Mahama to prosecute those implicated in the SADA scandal.
Let me begin, first of all, by telling the president that our party, the New Patriotic Party, is most grateful to him for beginning his 2016 campaign with a very theme that is on top of the minds of most Ghanaians: change. It is about change from NDC to the party that knows about the business of governance. It is 2000 all over again, except the difference is that President John Mahama has had more than enough resources than President Rawlings, and has squandered every bit of that opportunity. Also going into 2016, unlike 2000, the MPP now has a solid record of being in office for 8 years, delivering competently. If competence is defined by a president who promised to end DUMSO in 2013, and had been competently shifting that expiry date since then, and with no end in sight, then rest our case just there. As to the details of why this government under President Mahama has been most incompetent, we respectfully wish to leave that job to Dr. Baumia when he addresses the nation sooner than later. We wish to end this press conference by associating ourselves with a statement from the PPP that, in fact, by ignoring your responsibility of governing this country and engaging in this fruitless tour is enough. It's enough justification for the hashtag incompetent Mahama.
In another development or in other news, President John Mahama has appealed to traditional leaders to support the Electricity Company of Ghana to arrest people who make illegal power connections. Speaking on government's efforts in addressing the current power crisis, President John Mahama decried the huge sums of money lost to illegal connections, saying the situation is depriving the ECG of revenue to pay off its debts. He said addressing some of these bottlenecks in ECG's operations will, to a large extent, solve the power crisis. He was addressing members of the Greater Accra Regional House of Chiefs at Dodowa as part of his Changing Lives tour in Accra.
One of the things we would like you to help us with is power theft. We all live in the community. We know those who are stealing the power and not paying. Illegal connections, we all know. It is those things that make the power more expensive for us, because for anybody who steals the power, we, those who pay, have to pay for it. Because the company's ECG must get the money back to be able to pay VRA and others to import the light crude. So if people are living in the community and they are stealing power, it's affecting all of us. And so I want Nime Name to collaborate with government. ECG has started an exercise of inspecting premises and arresting and sending people to court who are stealing power. And I want the judiciary to help us so that when these people are brought, they'll be fined heavily. And when they are fined heavily, they won't go back and attempt to steal power again. But currently when they go, they find them 100 Ghana cedis, 200 Ghana cedis. And they go back and they'll go and do the same thing. But I want also that anybody who knows people who are stealing power, you don't need to confront them. You just tip off your regional electricity officer or even your regional BNI officer. Just give him the information. ECG will handle the rest. And they don't need to know that you give the tip-off. But it's your civic duty to give a tip-off to the law enforcement agencies so that they're able to find people who are indulging in crime.
The Dodowa District Hospital will be handed over to government by February 2016, according to contractors working on the project. This was announced during an inspection of the facility by President Mahama. The facility is the first under the Built to Care program, which is a partnership between the Ministry of Health and NMS Infrastructure.
The 120-bed hospital will have a dedicated medical, surgical and maternity wards, modern and traditional treatment option, and local public health programs. The project will officially be handed over to government in February 2016. President John Dramani Mahama said he's impressed by the work done so far.
I want to commend you for a very good job done. I mean, when you walk in, you can see that the quality of work is first class. There has been transfer of technology, there has been transfer of know-how. What we're doing is still the tip of the iceberg. We have 216 districts. And our policy says that every district must have a first-class medical facility like that. And so we still have many districts that do not yet have these hospitals. And so as the years go, we'll continue to build them. And the skills of you who have worked on this hospital will be needed in other districts when we build their hospitals.
Staying with the presidency, the Council of Greater Accra Zongo Chiefs has declared its unflinching support for President John Dramani Mahama's second-term bid. The chiefs assure the president they will do everything within their means to ensure he wins the upcoming 2016 election overwhelmingly. The council made the declaration at the State House in Accra And President John Mahama met some chiefs, religious groups and stakeholders as part of his Changing Lives tour in Accra. Chief Alhaji Yakubu speaks for the council.
On behalf of the Greater Accra Council of Muslim Chiefs, we acknowledge the good works His Excellency the President John Dramani Mahama has been doing, like the good roads, hospital, etc. His love for humankind, the level of patience he shows. It's an open secret that he has won the hearts of the Muslim community. Mr. President, you have a full support, the full support of the Zongo chiefs. We are solidly behind you because we've seen the good works that you are doing, and we want to give you the opportunity, the chance to do more.
We're taking a break on Joy News Prime. We have more stories coming up. Please don't go away. Welcome back to Joy News Prime. Government has directed the Economic and Organized Crime Office, YOCO, to investigate former Deputy Energy Minister K.T. Hammond for his role in the sale of a drill ship to pay off a judgment debt. The recommendation is contained in a government white paper on the judgment debt report prepared by the Judgment Debt Commission. Government wants Kobna Tahir Hammond to explain how he disbursed about $900,000 balance resulting from the sale of the ship. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo has been going through the document and joins me now in the studio with more. Good evening to you, Joe.
Israel, good evening to you.
All right. First of all, give us a background to this white paper. We know the proceedings happened some time ago.
In fact, they started sitting as in the Judgment Debt Commission back in 2010. That's when the President first inaugurated this commission. They had a 1-year duration to sit. They sought for extension. They ran for 2.5 years. Eventually, then they submitted the report to President Mills. That's about 6 months ago. President Mahama, I mean. And so, among others, in terms of the recommendations that were made, have to do with the issue with the drill ship. And let's just go through that briefly. You would recall that the GNPC entered into this contract with DSG Bank, and then things went bad. Eventually, they sued government in a London court. They got a judgment debt to the tune of $47 million US. As at the time that that was given, according to government, they had agreed on a negotiated settlement of $14 million US. And the governments that are taking over, the NPP, had not gone to the court to indicate this to them, which was how come they went ahead with the default judgment. That's according to the findings of the commission. And so eventually, K.T. Hammond, who was then the deputy minister, was sent by President Kufuor, and these are the details in the commission's report, to go negotiate a settlement. And instead of the $47 million US, government agreed to pay $19.5 million US. And so a decision was taken to sell the drill ship, the Discoverer 511, to defray the debt, and it was sold for $24 million. And so when $19.5 million was used to settle the debt, there was the rest of the amount, which was $3.5 million US, which, according to the commission's report, government, or for that matter, the NPP government then has not fully accounted for how it spends that amount. And so they made a number of recommendations with regards to that particular amount. Let me run through them briefly. Government says that it's accepted the recommendation of the commission that the Minister of Finance and officials of the Controller and Accountant General's Department questioned the officials at the Ghana, London, the Ghana High Commission in London at the time, so that then they render proper accounts, those who were there between 2001 and 2006. First of all, they should render proper account on how the $3.5 million US was spent. Secondly, they had to explain how an amount of $141,000 that was paid into a Ghana International Bank account was also spent, and they also asking them to explain how another amount of $1.5 million US was also spent. And finally, the bit having to do with K.T. Hammond. Government is agreeing, or for that matter, accepting the recommendation of the Judgment Debt Commission that K.T. Hammond, the K.T. Hammond ensures that the law firm which assisted in the sale of the ship, one law firm known as Constant and Constant, you know, how they disbursed an amount of $900,000 US that was paid into an escrow account in London, which was supposed to cater for future debts of the GNPC to creditors. You know, it's a little messy there. So the directive is that YOCO should undertake investigations on the mandate, the authority, and the basis on which K.T. Hammond ordered for the disbursement of the said $900,000 US that was paid to the law firm to cater for future debts of the GNPC.
All right, thank you very much, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo. Now, the Attorney General called a news conference today about this particular issue. Let's hear what she had to say.
The white paper acknowledges some of the major factors leading to the payment of outrageous judgment debts. And these are contractual breaches resulting from unlawful abrogation of contract, inadequate legal knowledge, expertise, and appreciation of the drafting of agreements binding public sector institutions, abuse of power by state officials during the execution or performance of their duties, inadequate action or inaction by state attorneys to defend the Republic when there are cases against it, lack of specialized alternative dispute resolution mechanism or a department of that nature to help the state to resolve some of the judgment debt issues, ill intent of corrupt state officials, civil servants, citizens of Ghana, and expatriates to milk the state by taking advantage of the loopholes in Ghana's legal and administrative systems, lack of oversight responsibility by state officials, undue political interference within the public sector by powerful politicians, failure of government to recognize, identify, and tap talents in the country due to political colorization, unnecessary compensation payments in respect of land acquired by government. These are just a few of them. Commission recommends its further investigations. The critical ones, for example, is the strengthening of our record keeping. And some recommendations are made for how record keeping should be improved among the public sector institutions. There are recommendations with regard to, for example, strengthening this office's ability to protect the government when it comes to negotiating agreements and then in court as well. Now, one of the things it says that we should do is to use the services of audit firms and the Auditor General to critically review some of these judgment debts. That's something we've already started anyway, because if you recollect, there was a case in Kumasi involving China Jinlin. I don't know whether any of you recollect, involving a judgment debt of about 300 million. Now, we contacted the Auditor General, we brought in Pricewaterhouse, it was reviewed, and indeed we went back to court, and in the end what we are supposed to pay is in the region of about 250,000. So you understand where the sole commissioner is coming from when he says we should use audit firms.
Right, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is still here with me in the studio, and the Attorney General touched on a number of the recommendations by the Judgment Debt Commission. Are there any others that you think are significant?
Exactly, and specifically the ones that government has accepted. The first one is that the Commission recommended that Parliament passes a political campaign funding bill to prevent the situation in which the funding of political activities and election campaigns has become a major source of corruption in public office. That's a recommendation government is accepting. Government is also accepting the recommendation to establish a specialized alternative dispute resolution center within the Aegis department. They're also accepting the recommendation that they should cease the frequent changes in the names of ministerial portfolios. Right. Anytime a political party leaves power for another to take over power, that's also something that they're accepting. Now, there are a number of others that they are not accepting. You would recall that one of the recommendations of the Commission was that there should be the setting up of a permanent body to take care of judgment debts. This was one of the recommendations. That recommendation, government says it's not accepting. The Commission also recommended the separation of the roles of the Minister of Justice and Attorney General to protect the prosecutor's office from undue political interference. Government is not accepting that recommendation either. And there was also the recommendation that there should be a legal regime to ensure that contracts which are executed in one government are allowed to transcend between both the incoming and the outgoing one. Government has rejected that recommendation as well.
One of the recommendations, as you say, government has accepted is a political party funding
bill.
Funding of political parties.
Exactly.
And I think it's quite significant, and we wait to see when that will be put into
as
fruition.
to whether it really serves its purpose. We all wait to see, as you rightly said.
Right. Thank you very much, Joseph Opoku Kako. You're watching Joy News Prime. Now, Accra's largest liquid waste disposal facility, popularly known as Lavender Hill, is due to be decommissioned in June 2016. The national capital's liquid waste will be disposed of at the Accra compost site instead of being dumped into the Atlantic Ocean. Here is a report by Hannah Odame.
Battling sanitation has been a major target for successive governments, yet filth engulfs many parts of the country. The president of the Environmental Service Providers Association, Dr. Joseph Sian Ejapon, says engaging the private sector in waste management will reduce the reliance on governments which cannot adequately clean up the country. Speaking at the Diplomatic Dialogue series in Accra, Dr. Ejapon said closing the Lavender Hill liquid waste facility has been long overdue. He welcomed the proposal to use Accra's liquid waste for energy generation.
By June 2016, the Lavender Hill full automated with whereby you can have biogas. The Accra compost plant has a side of a sewage treatment plant where it can take about 60 trucks a day. Currently, the Lavender into the sea takes 150 trucks. So all the trucks that comes to the sea will halt today and start discharging. We want to generate energy to power the plant. So these are some of the things that when the private sector is engaged, he will look at long-term sustainability and take ownership of it.
According to the United Nations, 2.4 billion people in the world do not have adequate sanitation, with 1 billion people still defecating in the open. Ghana is no exception. The country could not attain its MDG target on sanitation despite receiving many funds from international partners. Dr. Ejapon wants those funds accounted for.
What I know of is that there's a Ghana Wash project, of which I am aware that is about 150 million euros. I've also been informed of the World Bank of $150 million of Gamma project, and I've not been able to look at the various funds and where it has been used and developed.
In this regard, I want to find out if you have any form of monitoring, evaluation to know exactly how these funds and finances are spent so that we know the progress.
They are not within the private sector domain, so we can't monitor.
Chief Director of UNICEF's Water, Sanitation and Hygiene WASH program, David Duncan, however, has a different view. He thinks the funds invested have made an impact.
We've seen some tangible effects. For example, we build toilets in schools. Some of it is investment in the long term. It's building capacity. We're seeing communities become open defecation free, and that's certainly a tangible impact.
For Joy News, my name is Hannah Odame.
Watching Joy News Prime, still to come in the bulletin. Former rector of the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, Professor Stephen Adaye, says he will honor any invitation to appear before Parliament before referring to MPs as corrupt.
First of all, let me say that there's a distinction between Parliament as an institution and parliamentarians as individuals. If Parliament invites any Ghanaian to appear before it or its committee, I think that you have to go, and therefore I'm a responsible citizen. I will appear.
But next up, we bring you business news with Eton Amsey. Etonam says here with business news. Good evening to you, Etonam.
Good evening, Israel.
All right. So Fitch has issued some warning about the economy.
Yes, it's talking about the 2016 budget projections from government side, saying that some of them are not sustainable. We've had several reactions, Israel, since Setepe read the budget, and and we are still gathering such. But Fitch's concern is the latest on the 2016 budget, Israel.
Right. Take it away.
All right, now, ratings agency Fitch is warning the plans by government to reduce its rising expenditure to appreciable levels might be difficult to achieve. The warning was contained in the report issued by the agency on the 2016 budget.
According to Fitch, their major concern is that government is placing more emphasis on revenue than expenditure measures, which might prove very challenging if growth disappoints. The agency fears have been influenced by concerns that commercial production at the 10 field could also delay, as well as challenges in sticking to the 2016 budget spending targets because of next year's elections. On the budget deficit, Fitch is of the view that government might end 2016 at 6.2% rather than the 5.3%. The agency is even questioning the current deficit position for the 9-month ending, saying the situation has come about because of underpayment of social security contributions and grants to government units, which helped offset higher capital spending. Fitch argues that high domestic yields and a sharply weaker exchange rate have pushed up borrowing costs, with interest payments accounting for more than a third of government revenue, the highest level among Fitch-rated sub-Saharan sovereigns. The agency adds that the only way for it to review Ghana's negative rating and the negative outlook will depend on addressing underlying fiscal imbalances.
Some economists have renewed calls for the Bank of Ghana to review its inflation targeting approach to monetary policy. The Monetary Policy Committee on Monday increased the policy rate to 26%, primarily to control the rise in inflation. This is the second increase since June and the highest in a long while. Executive Director of the Institute of Fiscal Studies, however, says the attempt by the central bank to control inflation by increasing the policy rate is counterproductive.
We should also put that into context. We are not running two governments in the country. There's only one government, all right? And the Bank of Ghana and the Minister of Finance are institutions of government. So you cannot have one institution say that we are independent, and now the law say that we must keep price stability. So whatever that we will do to keep price stability, we will go ahead with that, regardless of the impact of that on the broader economy. Let's take the policy rate, for instance. All right, the policy rate has been raised now. Yesterday is going to, I think, 26%. All right. Okay. Now, since from 22% they raised it up to 20%, has it been able to bring down inflation? Inflation has been going up. Okay. Why? It's because once you raise the policy rate, okay, it feeds into the average lending rate of the banks. It influences the bank. Okay, and the average lending rate of a bank is a cost of credit. All right, so it increases cost of credit, which then feed into prices. So the more you continue to raise the policy rate, hoping that it will mob out liquidity in the system, on the other side, it's creating credit. Cost of credit go up, or even the credit will go down. And when credit goes down, domestic production, it affects investment, production goes down, so we have shortage of goods and the price will go up. So it is a cost element in the pricing. So I think that policy is totally counterproductive.
An economist, Dr. Osei Asare, also insists it has become crucial for the central bank to revise its monetary policy approach to the benefits of the economy.
System, because moving from a deficit of about 9% that was recorded last year to a deficit of 5.3 in next year is huge jump, you know, and that will mean a whole lot of adjustment, which can be very expensive to the economy. So I think that the Ghanaians have to really tighten their belt going forward in next year, and businesses, there's also going to be some kind of liquidity constraint in the economy, because it's projected that the monetary aggregate, that is the M2 plus, is actually going to contract. It will increase by just about 2% compared to about 50% that was recorded in the previous year. So all of that put together is really not going to be easy for many businesses.
Chief Executive of UT Bank, Prince Kofi Amoabing, fears plans to increase minimum capital requirements for banks could force some local banks institution out of business. Joy Business is learning that the Bank of Ghana is currently looking at two options to increase the capital sources. Sources also say the regulator might adopt the outright increase of over 100 million Ghana cedis for every bank. The other option to increase the capital based on the risk undertaken by a particular bank. But Mr. Amoabing says the regulator should tread cautiously with this plan.
If you're a small bank with small capital, there are regulations that limit you to the kind of business you can do. So typically, you can't do more than 25% of your equity. So the Ghana's economy, most of it sits with the SME and small businesses. So you can finance, even a small bank can finance a lot of these SMEs. But even if you want to finance big ticket, you can then go into consolidation with other banks, syndication with other banks, to try and find if that's what you want to do. But the small banks should find their niche and be able to penetrate the system, because then you are more flexible and you can come out with a niche and satisfy the SME and the informal sector. Because the big banks are not interested, because they can get bigger deals, cozy deals to do. So the issue about raising capital, which actually affects the local banks, we have a situation where we have 29 banks or so. That is certainly a lot for such a small economy. But about 18 of them are foreign banks. So if you say you are consolidating the banks or you want them to come together, the 18 will not come together. So you are left with the Ghanaian banks that you want to squeeze. You end up with probably 22 banks, and 18 will be foreign, and 3 or 4 will be Ghanaian banks. Is that what we want? Then the banking sector is not in our hands anymore. So I think this calls for a bigger debate and discussion on it, because consolidation or limited amount of banks or increase the capital means you are squeezing your own indigenous banks out of the system.
So you think that
However, the Bank of Ghana has maintained the action is critical due to current developments in the economy. The regulator has also argued that its action have been influenced by frequent requests for waivers by some banks to undertake some transactions. Well, time to talk cash now, and John Amwakwe is here to tell us what is happening on the world markets. Hello, John.
Hi.
Do you have some good news?
Not so good, but I think it's okay. But today, I mean, I don't really have much to give because the markets aren't giving that much. But then what I actually want to concentrate on is to look at something that's happening to the market. Today, not much actually did happen. EBG, that's Ecobank Ghana, gained some one peso to close somewhere around 7 cedis, 11 pesos. Same applies to Societe Generale, which also lost almost about 1 peso. But then there's something here that we need to actually be paying attention to. Over the period, because we are losing value, the city is losing value to the dollar, it's also affecting the market over the period. Let's look at this. When we talk about market capitalization, what we mean is simply the value of all the stocks listed on the market combined.
Right,
okay. Over the period, before we started the year started with almost about 64.3 billion as the value of the total market. Okay. And then the dollar equivalent was about 18.3 billion as the value, the dollar equivalent. But look at it. We are ending the year somewhere around 61.5 billion. Okay? So these are some of the things that we look at. And of course, if you don't manage the economy very well, I think that some of these things do affect us. Okay? And we should take note of these things very well. I think I'm losing it. But all it takes is that the value of the dollar against the cedi have some significant implications in the value of the of the bonds or the market. Okay, that's exactly how it is. And then on the currency market, we are still losing out against the pound, which I think managers of the economy should be checking. Okay, as we speak now, it's almost about 15.65% to the Ghana cedi. That's the total loss of it. So I think that is exactly what we are actually looking at. Against the euro, we are also losing almost about 3% as at date. So these are some of the things to be looking at. Commodities, cocoa still is losing almost around $30 as at now. You remember yesterday it lost almost about $60. And today it's lost almost about 30. So these are some of the dynamics you'll be looking at. It's going to affect our revenue generation come next year. And I think we should be looking at it, not so much relying on that. So I think it's been quite significant knowing some of these dynamics and how it impacts the market. I think that has been the market for today.
Right, John. Thank you very much. So you have a fair idea how the market is faring and where to invest. My name is Eton Amse. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. That's our wrap-up of business.
Watching Joy News Prime, over 80% of households in Accra do not have access to toilet facilities. This has compelled many in the sprawling city to engage in open defecation. To help address the problem, the World Bank is providing a $100 million facility to provide toilets for households who do not have it.
According to the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, about 72% of Ghana's urban population use shared public toilets. It is estimated that 7% of the urban population practice open defecation. According to the ministry, sanitation coverage in urban Ghana is only 20%. This is one of the lowest, and it is below the 41% of the regional average for sub-Saharan Africa. Most MMDAs discharge fecal matter into the sea or into open drains. Based on the current situation, it is feared that 90% of feces generated by urban residents is literally deposited in the immediate environment regardless of the dire public health consequences. As part of efforts to address the current situation, the local government ministry has launched the sanitation challenge.
This particular challenge is to be able to put in a mechanism that sort of solve the problem in total, and not say you are providing toilets and then you are creating another problem. So the whole intention is that it is to be able to get MMDAs take the lead, bring partners together, not only financiers and development partners, but also now bring local partners who have something to offer: technology, IT, research, even for the communities themselves, get them participating so that if they have to even go for some sort of microfinance or maybe some sort of loans and schemes, they can see why they need to do that.
In January this year, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development launched a project to begin the construction of toilet facilities for selected households under the Sanitation Business Module 1 program. 11 months down the line, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly is lagging behind in the construction of the toilet facilities. As part of effort to meet the target, the World Bank is providing a $1 million facility for the Accra Metropolitan Assembly to construct over 1,000 toilet facilities.
This program has been comprehensively dealt with as far as MMDAs are concerned, but with the Greater Accra Metropolitan Area, that's the way we call it, involving the metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies within the Greater Accra region, who have signed on into the World Bank's 30 million, almost 150 million water and sanitation facility. We are using $100 million for the construction of toilets in households, and to, as much as possible, eliminate open defecation, which leads to other health hazards and health complications we have, especially cholera outbreaks and the rest. We've done so poor in the area of toilets. Just about 17% of our population in Accra, for example, have access to toilets.
Meanwhile, Thursday, November 19 marks World Toilet Day. The commemoration will focus on the link between sanitation and nutrition, drawing the world's attention to the importance of toilets in supporting better nutrition and improved health.
So the ministry have taken a drive, and we are launching, we take the opportunity of the National United Nations World Toilet Day to do a national launch in Bukom. We chose Bukom because Accra Central has become one of the areas where open defecation is very prevalent. And so we'll be seeing how we can make impact. From then, we will be expecting the MMDAs to make sure they enforce their bylaws. The bylaws detect that in every household where 2 or 3 people live, there must be a toilet. And we'll make sure the MMDAs enforce this regulation and this bylaw to make sure people construct toilets in their homes.
We're taking a break. We have international. Sudanese-born telecom billionaire Mo Ibrahim is in Accra for a series of public engagements. These include a public lecture on governance in Africa. Mo Ibrahim, who is the brain behind the largest leadership prize in Africa, is likely to announce the winner of the award this week.
We have the Mo Ibrahim Foundation having this event, this major event here. This event was supposed to be held last year, but you know the circumstances at that time with Ebola and all that, the event had to be postponed. But we, the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, felt it was very important to continue to hold this function here in Accra. And so the functions will be held here from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We'll be busy. And essentially, we are here also to celebrate governance in Africa. because the foundation basically its role is to try and promote good governance, transparency, accountability in our continent, so that we can have more stability in our societies, and more stability means you provide conditions for development.
You rather heard former AU Secretary General Salim Ahmed Salim, and he's now working with the Mo Ibrahim Foundation. Right now in the studio is Efakwa Harrison to tell us what's coming up on GNI. Good evening.
Good evening, Israel. And coming up on GNI, we're talking about the wrangling within the MPP. It seems to have taken a unique turn. Two chairpersons of the party, well, one suspended, of course, held press conferences concurrently.
An illegal National Executive Committee issued a statement purporting to have suspended the national chairman of the party. The processes adopted were illegal.
It's not fair to me and it's not fair to you. Definitely, I'm an acting president. I'm trying to do what the acting chairman, and I want to do what the party expects me to do, so that I will not be booted out.
You mentioned that you enjoy the limelight as the acting chair.
Why not? I'm seeing that's what I'm talking to you.
We'll also be taking your tweets on Nigeria, and a tragedy brings these age-long rivals together. I'll be back shortly with the interactive segment within the hour. Israel.
All right, thank you very much for Paris, and I was actually enjoying the anthems that was being played, but you're going to bring it back. Okay, sure. All right, thank you. We have sports and entertainment all coming up in the second hour of the bulletin. Please stay tuned. We're back with you in a bit. You're watching Joy News Prime. Let's take a quick look at our top stories before we get on to the rest of our stories. And suspend the national chairman of the opposition New Patriotic Party says he intends to go to court to fight his indefinite suspension. The acting chairman, who says he is in no hurry to see the return of the suspended chair, has meanwhile chosen to harp on what the party says is the incompetence of the Barima administration, alleging the president is also corrupt. Government directs Economic and Organized Crime Office to investigate former Deputy Energy Minister Katie Hammond over the controversial sale of a drill ship owned by the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation to defray a judgment debt. In business, ratings agency Fitch is warning that plans by government to reduce its rising expenditure to appreciable level might be difficult to achieve. And Accra's famous liquid waste disposal dump Lavender Hill to be decommissioned in June next year. Now on to the rest of our stories. And the former rector of the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, Professor Stephen Adair, says he will honor an invitation to appear before Parliament for referring to MPs as corrupt. The comment by the renowned economist has angered several MPs who have stated he will be hauled before the House to substantiate his claims. He says he will have no choice but to show up if he's invited, maintaining he stands by what he said.
First of all, let me say that there's a distinction between Parliament as an institution and parliamentarians as individuals. If Parliament invites any Ghanaian to appear before it or its committee, I think that you have to go. And therefore, I'm a responsible citizen. I will appear. If they invite me, I will appear. I don't know whether in this regard I will appear as a foolish man according to Katie Hammond, or as a fraudulent man according to one law or so, or as a by heart man according to the minority leader. I don't know. I have to decide in what capacity they will be inviting me. But I think that every citizen who is invited by the august institution like Parliament will have to appear.
Now, one of the things we'll be putting to you is coming up with proof that MPs are corrupt and that they're corrupt even to their, their corruption even benefits their girlfriends. Do you have proof to support that?
First of all, I cannot answer what you say they will put to me. When they call me and they put a question to me, I will answer. but I can't assume that's what you are telling me, what they will put to me. No, I think that it will be presumptuous to predict the questions they will put to me. And let me correct it. I said that 80% of politicians, if they think that they belong to the 20% or the 80%, they may have to tell me. What I said is that people pay in order to appear before committees. They fund them, they take them to hotels and other things. The responsibility of Parliament is to make laws. That is what it's like us saying that a professor, in order to teach, must be paid by the students before you teach. I have a problem with that one. But I think we shouldn't. You news people always want the sensational. Parliament says they may call me. I think that let us wait for them to call me. And if I tell you when they call me what I would say, when I don't know the questions they will put to me, that will be presumptuous. I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they have their questions and I cannot anticipate them. But the bottom line is, if Parliament calls anybody, you must appear. The time may not be convenient for you. You arrange a mutually convenient time. Because when I have to be in Shramwasi and you want me to be in Accra, I say that tomorrow I'll come. I won't fly to come to meet you.
Tricycles may not be a popular mode of transport in the southern part of Ghana, but as one moves up north, commuters use these tricycles to move about. And on this recent visit to the Upper West region, President Mahama took a ride on one of them. In the following report, Derek Ekosam tells the story of what has become known as Mahama Kambu.
It's a common sight here in the northern part of the country, I'm in Tamale to be precise, and these tricycles flood the streets. They have different names for it. Some call it Mama Kambu, some call it Yellow Yellow. It appears that the people of Tamale have found love for this. They bought it everywhere they go. I want to know, why have these tricycles flooded the streets of Tamale, and what indeed are they used for? Is it a lucrative business?
I see it to be the most effective job in town. That's what. Because the first time I was in the house, I was doing mason work. I follow my other friends to go to mason work. It came to a time I find out that, oh, this thing, like when you are using it, you also get something better than going there. So I find out, I follow my madam to buy this one. You can't get money every day like that. So maybe in a market day or when there's an occasion, you also get what you need.
I'm a student, but I just completed last year. But I have no job. So I see that if I'm doing this thing, it will help me a lot. So that's why I'm doing it.
You get a lot of money from doing this job?
Yeah.
How much do you get in a day?
Well, actually, I can't best tell, but we are getting money in it.
Is there money in this type of business?
Yeah, if you're hardworking, you can get.
So in a day, how much do you make?
It depends. It depends on your season. You can, some are season less, some are season high. So for me, I'm able to get.
So how much do you make roughly?
Roughly 60 cedi.
Well, last month, the Brong-Ahafo Region Road Safety Commission proposed a ban on the use of tricycles for commercial purposes. But the riders say a ban on these motor tricycles will mean an end to their source of income.
If they do that, they will disturb people.
How will they disturb people?
Because most of women like to enter these motorbikes because the money is cheaper than the taxis.
Okay. And is it because it's also more convenient? You can enter places the taxis cannot enter?
Yeah, this one can go to some place and taxi can and not go that place. So that's why people like this one. They move faster and the money too is cheaper.
If they ban it, it will affect a lot of people in a country.
How?
Because people in a country like it because it is, and the price of it is low.
When it's banned, customers too will not like it.
Why?
They think they are enjoying it more than the olden days they were using.
Well, they tell me it's a lucrative business. It's something that they have loved for and want to go on with it. They tell me if it's banned, they won't have the money to take off their family, and also other customers who ride in it may not have the convenience after all. Well, anytime you are here in Tamale or any of the northern parts of the country, maybe you should hop in for a ride. For Joy News, Derek Ekosam, Tamale.
The 2012 flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party, Papa Kwesi Indom, is advising President John Mahama to focus on addressing the current economic crisis facing the country instead of wasting time responding to critics. Dr. Indom says Ghanaians expect the president to be proactive in solving the problems facing the country. Dr. Indom was addressing some journalists via Skype from the United States on pertinent national issues.
It is also important that we let him know that that is not what we expect from our president. That as soon as you are in the public limelight, just as I know I am exposed to, all manner of people will say all kinds of things to you. But he must stay focused. He must understand that a lot is dependent on him, that we are asking for a lot from him. And so if he shows frustration, imagine what some of us would also show. If you desire and you want the job as president, you must know that all the burdens of the state are on your head and are upon your shoulders. And so you must remain, composed and take what comes. And what has been said by many different people, including myself, they are not insults. They are criticizing. But we are also, many of us, are coming up with suggestions to improve the situation. I just expect that the president will take those recommendations, those suggestions in good faith. As for what was read, let me also say something. Mr. Setepe, I have a high regard for him as a technical man, technical competency in terms of handling finances. And so when I heard him read this budget, I said, did this man write the narrative or not? Who wrote this narrative for him to come and read? Because it was as if he was at an NDC convention, okay, talking about, what we have done when we know some of the things that they say they have done are not so, talking about people giving them another mandate, and so on and so forth. I said, does this belong in a budget statement? So I was surprised, really, quite frankly, surprised at the narrative, okay, at the words that were used, the language that was used.
Watching Joy News Prime, we're taking a break. We'll come back with entertainment.
Entertainment news is brought.
Right, and we're just going to take it up from there. It's Adum Praise, the Airtel Adum Praise, so it's coming up this weekend.
This weekend, yes.
So just a few days to go, actually.
So, like you're saying already, Ezekiah Walker is in town this weekend, and we are rendering praise to the Lord God Almighty. And one of the persons who is billed also to perform is gospel artist Selina Boateng, and she's been telling us what to expect on that day.
Is the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. He will accomplish it. I know He will accomplish it. It doesn't matter what we are going through. God will accomplish it. He will make sure He will bring it to a successful end. So hold on to your faith. Just come with your handkerchiefs, your dancing shoes. It's going to be wow. In fact, I'm really prepared to, deliver. And I know when the stage is given to me, I'm going to perform and perform very well. Because I and my guys, we have prepared very well. So you just come and then come with your friends. Make sure you have your tickets. Because this Saturday, heaven is going to kiss the earth. Just come and let's give the dance to the glory. We are going to give the glory to God because He has been taking care of us from January to this month. It has not been easy, but still He is with us. So we have to praise Him.
All right, so we have Selina Boateng performing on the night. One of the acts.
We have Koda, we have Alabaster Box, we have Joe Metal.
Have we spoken to Alabaster Box yet?
We are yet to.
Okay, because that's a cappella group.
Yes.
And I'm sure they'll be giving us some thrilling performance on the night.
Praise the Lord.
I guess they're going to do the Aquaba song for Hezekiah Walker.
True. True. Now, Father Christmas is in town this Christmas.
Really? White Christmas or black Father Christmas?
Ghanaian Father Christmas. Gasmiller actually is Father Christmas.
Oh, yeah?
This December. He says that he's giving away a lot this December and he's ready to support one child through school.
T-shirts to backpacks to books to games, and then we end from bicycles. We go to the scholarship. So every kid that comes there on the day will get something. I'm trying to be hope. I want to be hope. I want to be hope for the kids.
Gas Miller. Telemo. The Telemo superstar.
Telemo has brought him lots of fortune, but another thing that Telemo has done for him is has given someone else's a track. You know, the guy Atom jumped on the Telemo track. The
horror,
the rhythm.
Horror for you.
Yes, the horror for Wakrum. And apparently we heard that Gasmela isn't too happy about it because Atom never got in touch with him before jumping on his rhythm. And we've been asking him because people say that the song Yewokrum has actually thrown Gasmela's Telemo out of town.
No comment.
Do you know?
No comment. I've not heard. You see,
have you decided?
One ship has sailed. Every other thing is, Charlie. See, we've made history. I mean, since Ghana music, I don't think that any song has lasted that long on radio and on TV.
Fresh boys, yeah, we'll chrome.
Miss G, easy.
Yeah, we'll chrome. Yeah, we're joining news. But celebrity crush. And you know, again, today is Women Crush Wednesday. Right. But today we are talking something else. Back this year, earlier this year. Now, Ifya granted a radio interview, and she said that no, okay. The musician, the songstress,
okay.
Ifya. She said that Moogies of R2B was her celebrity crush. Now, it sparked a lot of controversy, and we got in touch with Ifya, who is the headline artist for this year's girl concert, and she says it's just mere family.
Happy with Moogies. I like Moogies. He's my brother. Moogies is my brother. Payday, they're my brothers. R2Bs is a nation. We are movement. We move it. We support our own, and those boys are family to me. So when I said I think the question that was asked was, who do I have a crush on or something like that. But I don't really have a crush on anybody, so I just mentioned my brother's name, which is what it was, and then it escalated to that. But it's okay. I love Moogies, Payday, the ride or die. So if I love them, I love them. This is what it is. It's real pure love.
All right. So there was something that you quickly brushed aside, which has to do with the Girl Talk concert, which we've always known has been headlined by Becca.
True.
So why is Ifya now headlining it?
You know, this year we have seen a new face, and it's the Ifya Girl Talk concert.
Really? Becca has been the one who's been headlining all of this.
Now it's a new face because it's a new era for Fifi Banson. He says that it doesn't mean that Kiki Banson, sorry, it doesn't mean that the show is for Becca. It means that after a certain time, Ifya would also go off. There must be a
backstory to this.
No, you know, actually last year, before Becca left stage, she said to us that this might be her last concert. Yes, she said that. So I don't think there's anything to the story.
Really?
True.
We should all forget about it.
Forget about it. Forget that Becca fell out with
but they did.
Yes, she fell out with him, but if she hadn't told us last year on the stage that she was having her last concert, then we'd start thinking that maybe because they fell out.
I think there's an inside story. Maybe I should go investigate.
Okay, investigate.
Or maybe I should call a nurse.
Yeah, he'll do a better job. Okay, celebrity relationship. We've seen Sandra Nkobia, fashionista, lawyer, TV presenter Sandra Nkobia. We've seen her together with Payday of R2Bs.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes you see them wear the same foods, whereas, you know, with Payday reading on one.
Soccer tournament or something, they appear together in some. Yeah.
And this time around, again, at the Foresight music video, where she couldn't just take her eyes off her boob. So that's Sandra. And Payday is performing her eyes all over.
I mean, she's like odd, and it's like. Oh.
I'm looking at my darling. What is he doing? I'm appreciating him. He's just looking at me. You know, that kind of thing. If you're watching me.
Okay, so you could see love in the air.
You could actually see that.
All right.
Now, yesterday, we had the very big story about Charlie Sheen's HIV status. His father has come up to say that he's finally glad that his son has come out to tell everyone his status. His father is Martin.
Well, that's it. It's been bold. He's come out, and I think I hope it saves him some millions of dollars.
Yes, he's got support from family, so it makes it easier.
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't have our support, he's okay. All right, so that's it for entertainment.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss G, for the entertainment. And after entertainment, bring you sports with Gary L. Smith. Please stay tuned.
Entertainment news.
Time for sports, and Gary L. Smith is here. Good evening to you, Gary.
Good evening, Izzy.
And how come you shaved stuff off? Is it because you feared you'd be seen as an IS or?
In the interest of being competent.
Don't go there.
I am there.
Carry on with sports.
Thank you. So, today in the sports, top story today, Parliament has been advised to pass the sports bill to empower the National Sports Authority to act appropriately. That was said by Magnus Rex Dankwa at the University of Ghana at a seminar.
One flaw is the absence of the sports law or the sports bill. I'll plead with government that gets done, passed as soon as possible. Because you see, we've changed the name of Sports Council to Sports Authority, and yet we have not given them the power of the law that will let them act as a sports authority. And I think that is a major flaw that we need to look at. That, for me, is key. I believe that we should encourage the sports authority to move the offices from the stadia, either here, Kumasi, Sekendi, or Tamale. We should give it up for rent. And then the money that will accrue from rent can go into sports development and fund all kinds of activities. Because the money to the sports authority gets decreasing by the year. They can't look after the stadia well. Meanwhile, the stadia were designed as conference centers with bigger car parks than any hotel. What they haven't done, the authority haven't done since 2008, is how to leverage that to bring a lot more people in for them to use the facilities and make the money. It means that that is not their business and they don't understand it. So if you don't understand that business, then give it to somebody who understands. You understand? We have corporate boxes there. Because if it's a private thing, and every year you have to pay people salaries, and then you are not creating the events that will bring you money, you go bankrupt. But because they rely on government and they think that money will come, so they are not creative, they are not innovative to do things. I made mention of Gabon, who brought the champion of champions of France, the league champion and then FA champion, to Gabon to play after paying for the rights. There's something we can do for Accra Stadium, Kumasi Stadium, Tamale Stadium, Esipon Stadium. Bring foreign teams down. Because you know, even if you pay $2 million, TV rights, the attendances and things can pay and give you even some profit after the teams have come to play. Real Madrid has ever come to Ghana. Blackpool has ever come to Ghana. So how come that now that we have better stadia than even the 60s, we can bring these teams to Ghana?
Magnus Rex Dankwa always has a lot to say. Let's go out of Ghana into Africa. Now, the African Confederations Cup final will be with us this weekend, and already the build-up has started. It's Orlando Pirates versus Etoile du Sahel. That will be in the first leg final. We